You're never going to believe it, but it happened again. So today on the Audio Interface Assassin Says podcast, we're going to be discussing Beyerdynamic being acquired, me killing a second Universal Audio Interface within 24 hours, and other stuff too, so go ahead and stick around. Let's jump right into the big ticket item, which is Beyerdynamic being acquired by a Chinese OEM company. The company that bought them is called Cosonic, and their primary business seems to be manufacturing headphones. When we look at a couple of articles, which I will link in the episode notes and description, we see a couple of things that alleviate some concern that we as audio enthusiasts may have when we see a company as well regarded as Beyerdynamic being acquired. First quote is from Yahoo Finance, and it reads, "Most importantly to our readers in the consumer audio space, he confirmed that products will continue to be handmade and produced in Germany." Around 85% of Beyerdynamic's microphones and headphones, including the high-end T1 Gen 3 and DT700 range, the MMX gaming range, and Amaron wireless, are handmade at its production site in Heilbronn, Germany. Campbell said, "The expectation is that we will continue to be handmade in Germany. We expect that we'll continue to develop technology out of Germany as we have been." And that's the first thing that I read that alleviated some of my concerns, because it is undeniable I am a massive Beyerdynamic fan. They make two of my all-time favorite microphones, the M201TG, which is an instrument dynamic, which also sounds awesome on voice, and the M160, which is an insanely good sounding ribbon. It's one of my all-time favorites. And when I see this company that I love that makes great products is being acquired, I immediately think, oh no, not again. We're going to have another AKG situation where they shut down the Austria factory, or in this case, the Germany factory, or a Logitech and Blue situation where they acquire the company just for the Yeti and then let everything else just die on the vine. And that's something that I immediately thought when I heard this. I thought, oh no, they're going to shut down the German factory, which is where they make all of their microphones now. If I am not mistaken, maybe not the Fox, but the M series, the 201TG, 160, 130, MC930, all of that. Handmade, maybe not handmade, but made in Germany. So as long as they are able to continue to run those factories, that is a good sign. The second thing that I want to share is a quote from Hi-Fi Nut, Speaker Nut, what is it called? Stereo Net, not Nut. And it reads, or quotes, or says, "Cosonic has built its business as an OEM specializing in audio components for major brands, including Philips, JBL, Beats, Honor, Huawei, One More, and Soundcore. In 2024, approximately 77% of Cosonic's revenue, around $343 million, came from headphone manufacturing." And I think that portion of the article is likely indicative of why Cosonic was acquiring Beyerdynamic. I highly doubt a company that has 75% of its revenue coming from headphones is thinking, you know what we need to do? Let's get into the microphone market. I doubt anybody at Cosonic was thinking that. They are likely acquiring Beyerdynamic for the headphone market that they have, for the headphone technology that they have, so that they can implement that into products for all of these other companies that they're an OEM for. JBL, Philips, Beats, Honor, Huawei, One More, Soundcore, all of them. So we should likely expect to see some of Beyerdynamic's technology or sound character or whatever make its way into these products going forward, because why else would a headphone manufacturer buy Beyerdynamic? Maybe they just want the brand name. Maybe going forward, all of these headphones from these other companies will say powered by Beyerdynamic or something. I have no idea. So this is just okay news to me. Because if the alternative was Beyerdynamic going out of business, then actually I think this is great news that a company has acquired them so that the brand can continue, that their products can continue to be on the market and available, and the people who work there can continue to have jobs. If that was the alternative, awesome. Also, the fact that the company acquiring Beyerdynamic is primarily an audio company, I think that's a good thing because at least they have knowledge of that market and at least they understand the value that Beyerdynamic, not only as a brand, but as a technology company, as a microphone company, as a headphone company, can bring to them. So I am really hopeful that this is going to be a positive thing for Beyerdynamic and we are able to continue to see that brand into the future, see them thrive, and see them develop new things. Because it really seems like they have become a headphone brand, which I get. A ton of people love their headphones and rely on them. I'm a microphone guy, though. I want to see what Beyerdynamic develops next for microphones. What is the next studio quality microphone they put out? What is the next professional level microphone that they put out? Because it seems like it's been a while. They did put out a couple of content creator focused microphones, but I don't think they were really hits. I want to see what they do when they have the full force, the full funding of this new Cosonic brand behind them to develop some new microphones that aren't, please God, don't let it be, let's develop more gaming microphones. I get that's where the money is, so that's what makes sense for business, but I don't want that for this brand. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see them be, no offense to anybody who worked at Blue, I don't want to see them become another Blue where they just become the Blue Yeti or the Beyerdynamic Yeti. I want to see the M202TG. What's the next instrument dynamic that they would develop with all the new technology out there? Same for the ribbons. What would they do with all the technology that's out there now to improve on it? The M161. What's the next iteration? That's such an exciting idea. I don't know what it is. Otherwise, I'd be working there and I'd be rich. I would make so much money. I don't know what's next. That's why they make the big bucks. And I want to see that going forward. This could be a lot worse. It could be a lot worse. I am just glad that the company that is acquiring Beyerdynamic has their more than their foot. It has 77% of its body in the headphone realm and maybe even more in the audio realm as a whole. So at least it's not a completely different technology company just acquiring Beyer for the brand name or whatever, brand recognition. So there you go. That is all the news on that topic. I'll link 2 articles in the episode notes and description. In case you want to dive a little bit deeper, there is a lot of articles out there. Hi-Fi sites are covering it like crazy because Beyerdynamic is a huge headphone company. Now let's talk about what I have been testing. The reason I am calling this podcast the Audio Interface Assassin is because after I finished recording last week's podcast, I was goofing around and recording some music. I stepped away for a minute, came back to my computer, grabbed my microphone, and the inputs, the preamps on my backup Universal Audio Twin X got fried as well. So within 24 hours, I don't know how, I don't know why, I don't know what, but I killed $4,000 almost of audio interfaces from Universal Audio. I have my theories, which I will share. The reason I don't think it was the power supply or power surge or anything like that is I am using a Furman surge protector and a Furman power conditioner, and that is what all of my analog preamps, my Arteria 8 Pre, my Focusrite, and my amp are connected to. Maybe that's too much stuff. Maybe that's the problem. But nothing else has had that issue. The reason I don't think it's the cable that's in my Yellowtech arm is, again, that's a cable that I have used with hundreds of mics before, connected to my Focusrite, connected to my outboard preamps, connected to the Universal Audio. And in none of those cases has this been an issue. And in many cases, I have shocked the microphone, which is, I think, what was the impetus or the incident that caused the interface's failure. Because I had walked away, I walked back, there's carpet in here, so you build up a static charge, and like when you touch a door handle and you get shocked like it's office space, that happened. And in both instances, that fried the preamps of the two Universal Audio interfaces. That has never happened on any other interface, even though I very frequently have static electricity and will shock myself, or shock the microphone, rather. I don't sit here and just shock myself. I don't think that would work. The thing that I think caused it, and this is pure speculation, it has to do something with the microphone, which was the PDX 720, because that's the only element of the signal chain that had changed. Now, as soon as the second interface failed, I took the microphone down, unplugged it from everything, contacted Audix, and I shipped it back to them. They're going to investigate that, see if there's anything wrong with the wiring that may have caused this. I have also shipped back both of the audio interfaces to Universal Audio so that they can investigate those as well. So I am just in a holding pattern right now, trying to identify what actually caused the issue, because I'm speculating that it's the microphone, but perhaps it is just the worst luck in the world that within 24 hours, two audio interfaces decided to crap out and die. Maybe the cable went bad, and maybe the microphone just didn't work well with the Universal Audio interfaces. I'm not sure. Maybe there ought to be protections in the UA interfaces, and both of the interfaces, that protection failed. I do not know any of the inner workings of this, so I am very curious to find out what UA and Audix say, because it doesn't make any sense to me. Shocking a microphone should not be able to transmit enough voltage or current or anything into an audio interface preamp to fry it. It does not make any sense to me. So I am on the edge of my seat. Hang on. I am legitimately, literally on the edge of my seat awaiting a response from both companies, and we'll see what it turns out to be. I did hear back from UA, and they even commented on last week's video. I got a response in 2 business days, RMA in another business day, and yeah, I had to pay for shipping, but it's a 5.5-year-old interface. And I was able to ship both of them out for $100. So a lot more reasonable than I was expecting. I was expecting to have to pay $300, $400 for shipping. Maybe I just don't ship stuff enough and I have no concept of what a reasonable shipping rate is, but I was expecting a lot more. So $100 I'm not that worried about. But now let's talk about what I have been testing, and I'm going to say it. First up, the microphone, not the Universal Audio, the Neumann. Hello, Neumann. There you go. I have people who get angry when I forget to say that. Neumann U87AI running into the Universal Audio. I'm still using them. LA610 Mark II, their tube preamp and optical compressor. The reason I am using this is I realized while I was in voice chat how much I rely on having a limiter, which I used to run on the UAX8 for all of my voice chats, because I'd set my gain accordingly, and then with a limiter, once everything was converted, I'd increase the level and ensure I don't clip digitally. Now I can't do that because I don't have a DSP processing interface. So I have to do that in the analog realm on the LA610 Mark II. That is running line out into the Arteria 8 Pre which is what I was using last week as well, because I need to have my 2 preamps, I need to have my DI box and my guitar cab mic'd up at all times, running into the RME Baby Face Pro. For all the RME fans, there you go. I am on an RME finally, and that's what I'm using. I have had a few issues with it. One of them, I think it was not related to RME at all. But the second is sometimes Total Mix just completely ignores all of your settings. It doesn't recognize the interface, and you have to reset the device. I just have to unplug it and plug it back in because it is bus powered, so you don't have a power button or anything. But other than that, it seems to be working perfectly fine. I have been recording in DAWs, and the issue that was not RME's fault, it was Rogue Amoeba Sound Source. I can no longer use that plugin or that routing software because it causes so much latency. That had opened up, and the issue I was having is while I was recording, all of my recorded audio would be delayed about a quarter of a second. So while I was monitoring everything, it sounded like I was playing right on time. But once it was recorded, I would have to drag all of the audio back, I think an entire beat. It was a very bizarre issue, and if I'm not mistaken, that was caused by Sound Source. And I can no longer have that open because of that. But other than that, no issues. I do not have any DSP processing other than EQ. No limiter, no dynamics. It is... Oh, I do have reverb, which I have not used for anything, but that's a possibility. That's what I have been testing, and I will continue to use it, and I will report back once I find out what went wrong with the Universal Audio Interfaces, and if anything was wrong with the microphone I was using, because if either of those devices have a serious fatal flaw like that, that needs to be communicated. If an audio interface does not have protections to protect the preamps or inputs from any kind of voltage making its way back into it from a static shock of the microphone, or if a microphone is wired in a way where it's not a faulty product, but if it's wired regularly to send voltage back to a preamp, and if that preamp does not have protections, then it will fry it, that's also something that needs to be communicated. So I'm going to share all the information that I can with you, and I am hoping it's just a freak accident and nothing to be concerned with, and it'll be resolved shortly, and I'll have my devices back and be up and running. So I will report back at a later date, and I will see you there, or I will see you another time. Now I'm going to get off the edge of my seat, and let's talk about what you had to say. First comment comes from Seb Zillner. By the way, if you are into jazz, if you are into saxophone, get your mind out of the gutter. Go check out Seb Zillner on YouTube and Instagram. He is such an incredible musician. He says, I had the same exact thing happen to my Twin Mark II back in 2019. Luckily, I was able to sell my purchased VSTs used. Crazy to think that there is such a thing, and never looked back at this ecosystem. Welcome to the RME fam. Seb, thank you very much for the comment, and thank you for sharing your experience with this. The way that you're saying that makes it sound like perhaps it is an issue with the Universal Audio Interfaces and the preamp section in particular, where there may not be any kind of protection of voltage going back into it, and there's no way to block that or something. I'm not sure, but that is good to know that somebody else has had that exact same issue. And we have another comment from Clinton Monson. And he says, I had the exact same thing happen to my Twin X earlier this year. Both inputs were blown. Have patience. Customer support turnaround is 2 to 3 days per exchange. Took me over a week to get an RMA and about 6 weeks for them to repair and send back. Lesson learned, have a backup audio interface. I'm just realizing after reading your comment that your username is probably Clint Ed Monson. Not Clinted. That's not a name. Clinton Monson. I'm an idiot. Thank you very much for sharing your experience here. Again, it is really good to know that this same thing has happened to other people because that gives me a larger sample size. That gives me more information to draw conclusions from. And of course, that is going to go into the sample size of my two interfaces that died the exact same way. I'm going to have to wait to see what UA says, what the issue was, what needed to be replaced and repaired, and what may have caused those components to fail. I think that's going to really hone in on what the issue was. But this is great to know that this is not just a me issue. This is not just a my microphone issue or a my Twin X or a my X8 issue. This is something that has happened to other people. As far as being a part of the RME family, I am not fully on the RME train just yet. I am so reliant on having those real-time plugins from Universal Audio, and I am missing them. All of my podcast processing is going to have to change because I rely on a couple of UA plugins for the podcast processing, so I'm going to find a new compressor. Is that really all I use from UA now? No, I use their bus compressor as well. So yeah, just compressors. All that money and all I do is 2 compressors. But for voice chats, I gotta tell you, it is super convenient. I really don't need the interface I have. I use a lot of the inputs though, okay? I'm justifying it. I'm coping. I use 3 of the 4 preamps all the time. I have 2 line inputs all the time. Yeah, get off my case. I do need it. I'm arguing with myself on the podcast. This is what a crazy person would do. Thank you very much, Seb and Clint Edmondson. I appreciate you. And again, go check out Seb Zillner. Absolutely fantastic musician and fantastic saxophones. I cannot speak today. Next, we have a comment from Nick Google from the California Googles. And he says, what happened? Your videos were to the point, full of useful information. Now that rambling without real information. Nick Google 4525, thank you very much for the comment and the criticism and the feedback. I want to point out, you left this comment on the Bandrew Says podcast. What are podcasts known for? Rambling, nonsensical diatribes that have no real information and are a waste of everybody's time. That's what podcasts are known for, not containing any useful information. It sounds as though you are used to videos on my main channel, which is Podcastage, and on those videos, I stick to having a very strict structure. They are very structured, very to the point, no extraneous information, no rambling, no tangents, no diatribes, just information, test, information, test. That's how they run. That is not this podcast. If you are looking for an hour of just straight to the point facts, nonstop with no tangents, no rambling, no insanity, this show is not for you, and that is more than fair. I wish you the best. There are plenty of other podcasts out there that will wet your whistle and meet your criteria for acceptable informational thresholds to sound as scientific as possible. That's not this show. I appreciate the feedback, though, and wanted to point out the Bandrew Says podcast is very different from Podcastage. This is my passion project on the side where I get to talk about whatever I want to talk about in whatever way that I want to talk about it. I do still try to make it informational and informative, and that does kind of bum me out that you saw no useful information, no real information in last week's episode. But there's only so much I can do to meet people's requirements for information density because this is a one-man show. I don't have a team of producers behind me writing scripts for me. I just do everything on my own. I record it, I edit it, I publish it, I thumbnail it. I do everything. So if it's not up to your standards, I get it. more power to you. I wish you the best. That's going to wrap up what you had to say. Now we are jumping to the value for value section because this is a V for V podcast. That means no ads, no paywall. I put the show out there. If you enjoy it, return that value in whatever way you are able, whether it be time, talent, or treasure. We're going to focus on treasure. Another way that you can support the show is just share it with a friend. This is a long-form podcast that covers multiple topics. On YouTube, it sucks in the algorithm. It doesn't know what to do with it. Do we recommend it to Beyerdynamic fans? Do we recommend it to audio interface people? Do we recommend it to the insane? Yes to all. They don't know what to do with it. So share it with a friend. Maybe recommend it to psychiatrists so they can diagnose me as a lunatic screaming into a camera for 10 years. All right. We have one super thanks this week, and it is €100 from none other than, say it with me, TechMed Rainer Richter. And he says, Danke. And he also left an additional comment and said, Hi, Bandrew, I'm so sorry for you. Besides the money, I can feel the sadness of losing a well-known device you loved and relied on for 6 years. I hope UA will find a solution for you. Raina, thank you so much for the €100 and the constant support. It really does mean the world to me, and I couldn't keep this show running without you, so from the bottom of my heart, thank you. In regards to a well-known piece of gear dying, it is always a bummer. The biggest issue for me is just redefining and rediscovering a new workflow, because the way I have everything set up, the way that I like it, the gear just gets out of the way. I want to come in here, flip the switch, turn on the camera, record. Now I have to reassess everything and it's kind of exciting having to do that and try out new pieces of gear, try out new ways to get everything in. It's just not as streamlined as I would like yet. At some point, it will get there, but for the time being, it's in that rediscovery phase, and that just adds a little bit of time to production that I don't necessarily have and would like to be more productive. But I guess it comes with the territory, because now I'm learning a new piece of gear that I'll be able to review in the future, even though it's no longer available. But RME supports their stuff long enough that people can buy this used and still use it for probably another 10, 15 years. So that's very good news, and that's something I'm learning. I am learning ADAT expansion. I have another Toslink optical cable on the way because, I'm not actually syncing my interfaces, so I'm probably having drift here. I didn't realize I needed an in and a out. So that's fun. That's a new thing I'm learning. And it's always a bummer, but it can be exciting. And the biggest headache is just the loss of productivity and the gear actually becoming maybe not, I don't know the proper word. It's not becoming a hurdle. It is just, I'm not as efficient as I want to be. Raina, thank you so much again. And if you enjoy this show being ad-free, being out there, it is thanks to the support of Raina this week. Thank you so much. You are an absolute mad lad and a legend. Keep the lights on, keeping the hosting bills paid. It is thanks to you. That is going to wrap up all that I wanted to discuss. I was going to share my top 10 1980s albums because I have been on a tear the last week. It was fun doing that last week, but I went and pulled all of my CDs that were released in the 80s and have listened to them and ranked them. And I have my top 10, and I was going to share that, but I was talking to people in voice chat and they got offended. They said, where is this? That's not in there? For shame. So I had to pick up a few more CDs, and those are on the way. So I'm going to postpone that to next week. And, people are going to be mad at me. People are going to be so mad about my ranking of the best 80s albums. that I have heard. I have not listened to every single 80s album ever made. All right, that's going to wrap up today. I really do appreciate you coming by. I know there are a trillion things vying for your attention. You could be hanging with friends or family, watching a movie, listening to music, seeing a concert, anything. So the fact that you choose to spend your time with me does not go unappreciated. I see you. See that little light in the vent? That's me watching you watch me. That's not creepy at all. I hope you have an amazing Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Next Sunday, I will be back. I will be talking at you, with you, about you. I love you. Trust no one. Keep your eyes on the vents. I will talk to you then. Bye-bye. Boop, boop, boop. That may have been the most awkward outro I have ever done. I'm uncomfortable.
This has been a Geeks Rising production. Your executive producer is Bandrew Scott. For more information, head over to www.geeksrising.com.